Israel struck Iran, and here's who's making billions from it. The world froze overnight. Israel struck Iran. Nuclear facilities are on fire. Military leaders were killed. This is not just a war, it is signal. The world is on the brink of a new era. But what if it's not the generals behind this, but bankers? What if every missile is not revenge, but investment?
Let's try to understand together what happened, what is known at this moment, and most importantly, how much does all this cost, and who makes money on this? Because behind every missile, there are contracts worth billions. Behind every accidental strike, there are economic interests. And now you will learn how it works, economics of modern war. Economic background to the conflict. Oil empire on fire. Let's start with the main thing, oil. Iran controls 24% of the world's natural gas reserves and 10% of its oil. This 158 billion barrels. Do you know how much that costs at $80 a barrel? 12.6 trillion. Think about it, that's more than half of the US GDP. Mustafa Karimi works as an operator on an oil platform in the Persian Gulf. He learned yesterday morning that his shift had been canceled indefinitely. Exports had fallen from 2.5 million barrels a day to just 400,000. Losses? About 100 billion a year. Meanwhile, in Houston, ExxonMobil's CEO signs new contracts. Less Iranian oil on the market equals above the price, more profit for competitors. But the real fight is not in the desert, but in stocks and stock exchanges. Look further. Military-industrial machine. And here it begins real business. Israel spends on defense $23.4 billion per year. This is 5.6% of GDP. The US gives Israel $3.8 billion military aid annually. Lockheed Martin's David Cohen was looking at a stock chart this morning, plus 12% overnight. Why? New orders for THAAD systems after strikes on Iran. Iran officially spends $25 billion, but really about $40–50 billion, including support for proxy groups. Have you ever wondered why gasoline is rising again in price? Here's your answer. Every conflict in the Middle East is plus 5 to 10 cents at the gas station. Do you know what's the most cynical thing? Next, you'll find out who benefits more from war than peace. The dark side of proxy wars. And now, the most dirty proxy war. This is when they fight not themselves, but through third parties. Ahmed received a text message on his phone in Beirut. Operation has begun. $500 in the account. He is a Hezbollah fighter, and the $500 is part of $700 million which Iran spends on this group annually. Iran spends on support. Hezbollah, $700 million a year. Hamas, $100 million. Houthis in Yemen, $200 million. Shiite militias in Iraq, $300 million. More than $1 billion a year only to proxy groups. But what is much more important is why are Israeli strikes beneficial to China? More on that in a minute. Instant market reaction. Israel's strikes on Iran have already begun. Blew up world markets. Oil jumped by 4%, from $71 to $74 per barrel. Gold rose by 2%. Defense stocks soar. John Smith fills up his car in Dallas. Yesterday, a full tank cost $45. Today, it costs $48. Every percent increase in the price of oil is additional $20 billion expenses for the global economy. Meanwhile, new oil contracts with Iran are being signed in Beijing at discounted prices. Sanctions for the West are a benefit for China. Now the big question, how did Israel manage to strike so accurately? The answer will shock you. Success factors and economic calculations. Technological superiority and its cost. Iron Dome cost $1.74 billion to develop. Each intercepted missile costs $50,000 to $100,000. Here is the story of one of them. A rocket Eton, $35 million, destroyed a nuclear facility in Isfahan yesterday. It became a shock for the entire region, because before that, everyone thought that the object was invulnerable. Intelligence system AMOS, satellites worth $300 million each. Israel has them 5 pieces. They see every step of the Iranian military 2,000 kilometers. Israel produced more 20 Eton drones. Each one is an investment in future superiority. But the most interesting thing is how Israel deceived Iranian intelligence. A story worthy of a Hollywood movie.
The surprise effect as an economic weapon. A month ago, Iranian media reported on Israel's plans to attack completely different goals. Hassan Mohammadi, an analyst in Tehran, was preparing a report on port defense. Meanwhile, Israeli intelligence planned to strike nuclear facilities. The disinformation campaign cost about $50 million. Fake leaks on social networks, false sources, false operational plans. Result? Priceless. Iran has lost strategic assets worth more than $10 billion. Do you think that if you lived in Iran, you would feel protected by these billions on air defense? And it gets even worse. First word. The US is not directly involved, but they pay for everything. Satellite intelligence worth $200 billion. Logistics support, $500 million per year. Diplomatic cover, priceless. Yesterday, General James Carter received a call from Tel Aviv. An hour later, an American KH-11 satellite transmitted the coordinates of Iranian air defenses. Free? Of course not. Unspoken agreement. The US does not interfere with Israel, but in return receives control over the region and its oil routes. But what was happening on the other side? Why was Iran's $15 billion air defense system useless?
Iran wasted money on air defense system? Imagine you worked as an Iranian nuclear facility. After the strike, your house is destroyed and the plant is shut down. But do you know who signed a contract for the delivery of new air defense systems that same morning? Raytheon, for $2.4 billion. Iran spent $15 billion on the air defense system over the past 10 years. Russian S-300, $800 million. Own Bavar 373, $2 billion in development. Radar stations, $1.5 billion. Result? Almost zero. The Israeli missiles went through like a knife through butter. Now the critical question, can Iran respond? And what will it cost the global economy?
Cost of response. Iran has 3,000 missiles of varying range. The cost of each is from $100,000 to $2 million. The Revolutionary Guard commander looks at the map. Massive response will cost Iran $2 to $3 billion. Problem? 80% of Iran's budget is already being used for military needs and support of proxy groups. In Tehran, the finance minister receives a report. There are 100,000 left in the treasury after 2 months of war. After that, economic collapse. But here comes the most terrible thing, what all the media are silent about.
The paradox of war for peace. Israel spent $500 million for this operation to prevent a future war that could cost $50 billion. The math is simple. It's better to spend $500 million now than $50 billion later. The economic logic of war. Who really earns? While the region burns, some get rich. Defense companies. Lockheed Martin shares up 12%. Raytheon, 8%. Boeing Defense, 15%. Oil giants. ExxonMobil to earn extra $2 billion in profits from price rise. Saudi Aramco, $3 billion. Private military companies are already receiving contracts for protection of oil pipelines in the region.
The human price of profit. Behind every spot operation, there are huge hidden costs and human sacrifices. Every explosion destroys houses, schools, and hospitals. While the profits of defense companies grow, so do the cemeteries. Iran's destroyed infrastructure, $25 billion damage. Who will restore it? China already offers loans at 15% annually. Refugees? Each one costs the international community $1,200 per year. In case of escalation, this is billions of additional expenses. And there are real people, children, old people, families who have lost everything. Global economic risks. If the conflict escalates, the world will shake. Closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Passes through it 20% of the world's oil. Prices will skyrocket to $150 to $200 per barrel. World recession, inevitable. The losses of the world economy are $2 to $3 trillion. But there are also beneficiaries. The US will strengthen its hegemony. Russian oil will become more expensive. China will gain access to cheap Iranian resources. The cynical truth: while some are dying, others make billions of profit from their blood.
Strategic calculations. What can Israel achieve with this operation economically? Loosen up the Iranian economy by another 20–30%. Force Iran spends more on reconstruction than on nuclear program. Show investors that Iran is risky market. Can Iran respond economically? Iran has 3 economic weapons: oil, closing of straits, cyber attacks on the financial system, already causing damage in $10 billion annually, proxy escalation, destabilization of the entire region. But each of them is a double-edged sword. Iran will lose more than it gains. Economic forecast. Is it possible to resolve this conflict without regime change? From an economic point of view, unlikely. Sanctions against Iran will only get tougher. Military spending will grow. The regional arms race will cost all countries hundreds of billions. The only way out is economic integration, but this requires political will, which is not yet there. What will happen to prices and markets? Coming months: oil, $80 to $90 per barrel. Gold, growth by 10–15%. Defense stocks will continue to grow. Regional currencies under pressure. This is how the economy of modern war works. Behind every missile are millions of dollars. Behind every decision are billions of profits and losses. Behind every accidental explosion, someone's broken destinies. If you care about the world sliding into a rocket and refugee economy, subscribe. We're here to understand who's really pulling the trigger and who's profiting from every shot. Write in the comments, who do you think will benefit the most economically from this conflict? The US? China? Defense companies? Or maybe we all lose? Click the bell. We will soon analyze the economics of the Ukrainian conflict and the Chinese-American trade war. Because until we understand where the money is, we are controlled by those who control it. See you, and remember, knowledge is power, and ignorance is slavery.